Hello everyone, let us continue with the chapter Human Health and Diseases Part 15. And today we are going to learn about innate immunity. Last class we have studied about what is immunity and what are the types of immunity. And today we are going to learn about what is innate immunity, right? And this innate immunity, it is naturally active immunity, right? So it is otherwise called as naturally active immunity or non-specific immunity. Non-specific immunity. So which is written right from the birth, right? Which act against the antigen. So how it produces antibodies in order to fight against the antigen. What is it for an antigen? It may be a bacteria, it may be a virus, right? So how it can act? What are those barriers? So which act as a barrier? That is what we are going to learn here in this topic. So in natural immunity, in innate immunity, we are going to learn about the barriers, right? So first barrier is physical barrier, and the next one will be physiological barrier and cellular barrier and cytokine barrier and inflammatory barrier. Okay, and now we are going to move on to physical barrier. So here skin and mucous membrane act as a physical barrier, right? So skin, it is a physical barrier, and when you just take the outer tough layer of the skin, it is called as stratum corneum. What is it called as? Stratum corneum. So here this stratum corneum, it prevents the entry of bacteria and viruses, right? And what about the mucous membrane? The mucus secreted by the mucous membrane trap the microbes and immobilize them, right? So the mucus, what is secreted, right? So what happens? It doesn't allow the microbes to enter inside. So microbes and dust particles may enter the respiratory tract during breathing. But what happens here? The cilia sweep the loaded mucus into the pharynx. So what is this pharynx? You call it as common throat, right? So through the pharynx, it is coughed out as sputum. It will be pushed out as sputum, right? Or even though if it enters inside the esophagus, it may be eliminated through the feces, right? It will not allow the microbe to activate inside your body. Second one is physiological barrier. So here body temperature, then pH of some body fluids, then even some body secretions, all these prevent the growth of the microbes that causes diseases, right? So some of those factors which belong to this physiological barriers are, one is about hydrochloric acid. So this hydrochloric acid, it is normally secreted by the stomach, right, which kills most ingested microbes. Okay, and the next one is bile. So even bile does not allow the growth of microbe. And next one is about cerumen. Here normally the cerumen is called as what? Earwax. This traps the dust particles that kills bacteria and repels also the insects, right? And then next one is lysozyme, Z-Y-M-E, right? You would have heard about lysosome, but here it is lysozyme, which is the enzyme, right? Okay, so here antibacterial enzyme you call it as normally, and this is present in tissue fluids, but except it is not present in CSF. What is the CSF? Cerebrospinal fluid. And even sweat and urine, they are absent, okay? So they are present in tissue fluids, but except CSF, sweat and urine, right? And it is also present in tears, it's present in good quantity. So tears also contains what? Lysozyme. And then it attacks the bacteria. That is why here you call it as antibacterial enzyme, right? And here it dissolves their cell walls. And the last one is about the body temperature. So normally here, during infections, what happens? The body temperature increases, right? So you call that to be fever. So that is one case. And natural defense mechanism here, how in some cases it destroys the pathogens also, right? So these are the factors which act as a physiological barrier. And the third one is the cellular barriers, right? And you would have heard about WBC. So what are WBCs? White blood corpuscles. And what are they called as? Leukocytes, right? And what are the types of leukocytes? You would have learned granulocytes and agranulocytes, right? Basophil, neutrophil, eosinophil, then lymphocytes, monocytes. So all these are type of leukocytes, right? So these cells only act as a barrier. How come it act as a barrier here? See, certain types of blood cells called leukocytes. The other name for WBC is leukocytes, right? So what are the types of cells? Polymorphonuclear leukocytes. So in short, you call that to be PMNLs, polymorphonuclear leukocytes, right? Or neutrophils and even monocytes, right? And natural killer cells. So these are the types of lymphocytes. And even as well as macrophages also. So all these cells, they are most important phagocytes. So why do you call this to be phagocyte, right? Cyto means cell, right? Phagocytes, cell-eating. So here you can represent it as cell-eating. What is the name of phagocytosis, right? Phagocytosis. So the process. So it engulfs the microbes, right? Okay, it doesn't allow the microbe to survive. It engulfs. So that is what here you are learning. The macrophages are large irregular shape. So there is no shape. You can't describe the shape, right? So it is irregular in shape, which engulfs the microbes. So the process of engulfing microbes only, you call that to be phagocytosis. Understood? Like, so what are the, what does it engulf? Microbes and virus, then cellular debris, right? So that is why here you use the term phagocytosis. So at the site of infection, what happens normally? The monocytes will be released, right? And then these monocytes will be converted into cells called as macrophages. So this is how it is involved in phagocytosis. And the phenomenon of phagocytosis, it was first discovered by a person, right? I'll mention it here. Phenomenon of phagocytosis. Okay, it was first discovered by Metchnikoff, Metchnikoff in the year 1833. Right? Okay, so this is very important thing. And remember this Metchnikoff and Paul Ehrlich, they got Nobel Prize in the year 1908 for the work on body resistance. And the fourth type of barrier, what you are going to learn now is cytokine barrier. Okay, so certain kinds of cells, when infected with a virus, they release interferon. Certain kinds of cells, when infected with a virus, they release interferon. So what is this interferon? They are made up of glycoproteins. Glycoproteins, and one more thing you have to remember, that it is an antiviral agent. What is that antiviral? Which act against the virus. That is why here you use the term interferons, right? And these interferons, in short, you call that to be IFNS. It makes a cell resistant to viral infections, right? And the last barrier is the inflammatory barrier. Here, an infection or tissue injury usually causes redness. You would have heard about the word inflammation, right? So what is that? If there is a hurt, normally you'll have that redness, then swelling, right? And then pain and production of heat. All those symptoms are called as what? Inflammation, right? What happens immediately? Redness, right? Swelling, pain, heat, right? So all those. So you call that to be inflammation. So what happens? That may result in fever. So such an expression is localized, and you call this type of response as inflammatory response. So how come this inflammatory response is caused? It is only due to the release of chemicals. What are those chemicals? What is released? Histamines, right? And prostaglandins. So these two chemicals that are released were at the site of infection, isn't it? Right? So how it is released? By the damaged mast cells. So damaged mast cells produce this histamines and prostaglandins, and even the vascular fluid will be released out. Okay, and then the serum proteins will be released so that it kills the bacteria. And then what happens? Even the phagocyte will come near the infected area. So all these responses, what happens here? It destroys or inhibit the invading pathogens. This is how the whole body is being protected with the help of the immunity with such type of barriers. If you like this video, share, comment and subscribe my YouTube channel, and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And the link is available in the description box. Thank you.